Well, in reality, if you can say that, like, my friend who's in this position said this,
Yeah,
people will believe you.
that's true.
Also, how many times have we said, like, just blatantly or just wholeheartedly believe things that we're told by people we trust for no reason with no backing at all?
Yeah, I mean that's what.
I was going to sit normally, and the first thing I did was pull
That's
my
what
leg
the
up.
foundation of this podcast is, right?
Yeah.
That you believe. You shouldn't believe everything you're told. Like there is a toilet paper shortage.
Yeah, there is literally a toilet paper shortage. Have you been to the store?
No.
And seen how ridiculous it is, man? Sanitary items, anything like in the sanitary aisle, like soaps and everything, and then anything in the like toilet paper, paper towel, any of that,
Yeah.
all gone.
Yeah.
All gone, completely washed out. And there's like signs all around the Woolies at Kellyville talking about how like we apologise for the supply shortage. We're trying to rectify this issue. It was an unforeseen circumstance.
Yeah, so weird.
Well, I can't believe how insane people are going.
I can't either. I forgot to put a charger on this laptop, so I'm going to do that quickly while you talk about this.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
can't believe how
so
insane people are either.
I think everyone in the area really panicked all of a sudden when news came out that there was a reported case in a hospital in Ryde. So we're currently in the Hawkesbury, but sort of not too far away through the Hills district, through Castle Hill, Borkham Hills, over towards sort of city direction. There's a suburb, Ryde, and in Ryde Hospital, they had a reported case of coronavirus. And I think as soon as that hit the news, everyone started going nuts about how close it was, and bada bing, bada boom. Everyone's going through and buying everything so that they can prep and shut their doors and stay at home until half the population is dead, which is what the coronavirus is going to do.
Do you think half of the population will die? So Frank was saying before that the death rate's like 0.7%.
Yeah, and the recovery rate, like people who had it and are now like cured of it, is like...
Not cured of it, like they got over it themselves.
They got over it themselves, and now...
Zero cure.
Yeah, and now like is like 45%. Like it's huge.
That's still pretty low.
Yeah, but people, they're not dead. They just
true.
haven't recovered from it yet.
Yeah. I know, like I'm still recovering from,
Bitchitis?
the last time I did CrossFit.
Last time I did CrossFit. Yeah. Oh, did JP tell you about his genre for our podcast?
No.
Firstly, that's kind of the point of the podcast, JP, but also fuck you. He came in and he was like, oh, I was listening to your podcast, and he goes, now this is going to sound bad. And you know when someone opens up with this is going to sound bad,
Yeah.
it's going to be mean. He's like, I've got a new genre for your podcast. It's kind of just when, like, I don't want to learn anything. I want a familiar voice, and I just want to listen to some mindless chatter about stuff. And I was like, that's pretty much what the podcast is, mate. Like, that's the idea of uneducated opinions. And he's like, because sometimes you guys say stuff, and I'm sitting there going, that's not right at all. And I'm like, yeah, that's the idea. Like, he messaged me after that podcast where you tried to get me to explain an electrocardiograph, like the waves, and apparently I called it an AMG graph, when it's an ECG graph, but apparently I called it an AMG graph. I don't believe him. I think I might have said EMG, but anyway. So yeah, if you like are taking anything we say as gospel,
Don't.
you are an idiot.
Oh, those poor people. Anyway, look, if you were prepping for coronavirus, what would you stock up on if we were going to give advice to people on what is actually important to stock up on? I would say toilet paper isn't that important unless you think you're going to run out of water, like running water. Because, guys, you can wash your butts. You do not have to wipe that much.
Install a bidet.
Yes, a bidet would be a good idea. Bidet to you, sir?
But fuck. What would I say? I would say like just like hand sanitizers, probably a good one.
Yep.
Like soaps, that sort of thing. But I really don't understand the toilet paper stock up. Like I just don't get it. Yeah, I saw a funny post. I think, did you send it to me?
Sure.
It was like, hey guys, I've got news for you. Like, if you really wanted to try and stop the outbreak of coronavirus, maybe don't take all the sanitary, like general hygiene things away from half the population and not allow them to use it, because that's going to really help the spread of the virus.
Have you seen on Facebook a marketplace, like people selling toilet paper for like $20?
Yeah.
Or like is it a case of toilet paper? A box of toilet paper for like $300. I'm like, oh, this is hilarious.
There was one that Jay Morosi put in a group chat that I'm in, and it was like a Facebook Marketplace one or maybe an eBay one, and it was like one 24 pack of Quilton toilet paper, willing to trade for apartment, minimum 2-bedroom and maximum 5-minute walk from the beach. No silly offers, please. And he's like, no silly offers, and then in brackets, garages or studios.
I have really bad FOMO for group chats.
Do you?
Yeah. So when I hear that someone's in a group chat that I'm not in, I'm like, oh, why am I not in that one?
Because you didn't come out to the city that one time that you were invited.
Oh, that's the group chat. Hey, whatever happened to my jacket? Did Jamie ever say anything?
He never said anything.
Oh.
He's probably wearing it right now.
It's probably like stuck to his car. I can't believe how much that fell apart.
Yeah. That is... Do you have a video of that?
No.
No? I have a video on my phone.
Yeah.
Annie sat on his old leather jacket at the pub and obviously didn't move for what, like an hour maybe?
Yeah, maybe longer.
Like an hour and a half, 2 hours. And then when he got up, it was all stuck together and falling apart.
Yeah, so weird.
So the heat coming out of Annie's ass literally destroyed this leather jacket. Disgusting. And you weren't even drinking.
No.
Why aren't you drinking at the moment?
Because I'm sober. Forever. No, not forever. It's really hard. I didn't drink at the wedding on the weekend.
Oof. That's rough.
And I stayed up until until we went to the after party as well. And I was completely sober, nothing. I was a good boy.
There you go.
And Kush was like, oh, just have a beer. Because she was getting like antsy about me not drinking. I'm like, no, it's all right. Like, I'm having fun. But really, I wasn't. I was, this sucks.
Isn't it funny how, I don't know whether if you actually do struggle with it, but I really struggle to enjoy myself if I'm out with a group of people that are all drinking and I'm trying not to drink.
No, I'm fine as long as I have something in my hand.
Yeah.
So, if I'm having, a Coke or, whatever, because I don't drink that stuff normally. But the thing that gets me is when people get so drunk that they get, gross. And then I am,
sober sensibilities are
yes. Like when people start throwing up and there was this girl that was just legless and then walking around.
Was it Kush?
No, Kush was good. Kush drank so much now.
Yeah.
Canada has
built her tolerance.
Yeah, just the other night we were at home having dinner and she had 2 beers and a scotch. But that was just a weeknight.
Kush is now an alcoholic, eh? Has she got roommates where she is?
Yeah.
She's living with housemates?
Yeah, she has one housemate.
One housemate. So they probably just drink all the time.
Yeah. And I think they go out and they're in the city, so they live the city life.
Yeah.
She's basically a yuppie.
Yuck.
Anyway, back to this group chat thing. I get serious FOMO when I'm not in group chats. Do you feel the same way?
Yes, I do get serious FOMO. There's a couple of group chats that...
You know about that you're not in?
That I know about because they're an iMessage group chat.
Yeah.
And I have a Samsung. I have genuinely considered changing back to iPhone purely so I can be in these group chats because I will see 4 of my mates all at a pub session.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, and then 3 hours into the pub session, I'll get a message and it'll be like, hey Steve, we're at the pub. And I'll be like, cool, where was my invite fucking 3 hours ago? And they're like, we forgot you're not in the group chat. And I'm like, bastards. It happens too often. But it's almost a good thing at the moment trying not to drink.
So you're also trying not to drink. Why are you not trying to drink?
Why was I initially trying not to drink? I just scattered a couple of comps in a row because I really do believe that I'm a much better athlete when I
I'm sober.
am sober for a while. So I was like I was like 15 weeks out from Down Under, and then I had that weightlifting comp a bit after, and then I have another comp like maybe 4 weeks after that, and then another one 2 weeks after that, and then Down Under. And I was like, I've got this big scattering. If I can just keep looking forward to the next comp and be like, oh, I can't drink because I've got that next comp, it just might be an easy way for me to not drink maybe all the way up to Down Under.
Yeah.
It means I need to get past my birthday without drinking, which is hard. But at the same time, it's not like it's a big birthday. It's not like I'm having a party. So I might just I won't even call it a birthday thing.
Isn't it your 40th? Like, shouldn't you be
yeah.
celebrating?
That's the only good thing about maybe getting a little bit older, like if you're hitting 30, 40, is it's an excuse to have a big party again.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think 30 is a big party. 30's a sad. I feel like I shouldn't talk about this, but there was a poor girl at the wedding that turned 30, and a drunk person turning 30 who's female. Like, it's a hard thing to watch. They do not take it well.
See, I'm still 15 years away from turning 30, but like I can't see at this point that it's going to be that much of an issue for me.
Yeah.
Like, just the idea of getting older doesn't really bother me, but maybe that's because I'm still only 22. So
no, the idea of me getting older doesn't bother me as well, and that's something that is, like Kush and I were talking about this the other day, is that people, like, we're so conditioned to things, like conditioned to get married, conditioned to have kids, conditioned to, sit and stand when, the priest tells you to, or kneel, or suck. Like, like,
I was trying to decide how I was going to work it in, and then I was like, I'll let him do it.
But, like we're conditioned to do so many things, but we're also conditioned to think about, like, getting older as a bad thing.
Yeah.
When it's not. Like, it gives you so many more opportunities. Yes, you might have more responsibilities, but it's your choice to have those. Or, like, when
you could
people
just
say,
bludge on the doll.
That's it. Or, like, when people say, like, they feel old, or like their body hurts and whatnot, like, that's you losing options to move.
Yeah.
Like, if you keep doing what you're doing, like, you can move well and feel good in your body for like a long time.
Yeah. Do you think that part of, because we've spoken about this before,
I do believe that women also should stay in the kitchen, if that's what you were getting at.
No. So you hold we've spoken about this before, you hold a few opinions that maybe would be considered uneducated, but away from the norm opinion, like you're probably an outlier in a lot of your opinions, whether it be related to the education system, like we spoke about last week, or we spoke about, what other ones did we talk about in the past where we brought it up? I can't remember. There was a couple of
rights.
Women's rights, yeah, you're definitely away from the norm there.
Because I'm for it.
Yeah. But there's a few where generally you sort of push onto that outlier.
Yeah.
Do you sometimes think, do you ever think that maybe some of those opinions you hold them because they're the outlier and you want to be the outlier?
Like I'm some sort of strange rebel that just...
A little bit, yeah. Like that's kind of what, like, so if we take, I guess, like, you don't really have much interest in getting married, do you?
No.
No. So getting married isn't really a big thing for you. That would be considered away from the norm. And it's not because you have any issue, like, knowing you, it's not because you have any issue with having a commitment to someone. I think it's just, is it not just the institution of marriage that you just find a bit silly?
Yes.
Yes. So do you think that maybe those sorts of opinions have something to do with you just being a little bit
of a dick,
rebellious away from the norm, rather than necessarily, and maybe you've found valid reasons to throw into that want to be rebellious?
Yeah.
Or do you think the valid reasons that you held first then led to that maybe rebellious outlook, even though it's Like, which do you think came first? Was it the chicken or the egg?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess with a lot of things, I guess my hatred, not hatred, I don't hate married people. My
Disdain.
disdain for marriage. Oh, actually, it's not that. One is actually like, it's a considerable expense to marry someone.
Yes, this is.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like as someone who is cheap by nature,
Yeah.
or not cheap, but like I'd rather spend my money on other things.
Yeah, as would I. I
Yeah.
think as actually would most modern men. But
And I'm just lucky that my partner also shares this
yes, yeah.
mutual affection for money. That, you know, like she'd rather put money away and save it rather than
Spend it on.
spend it. And I talked to my dad recently, and he was like, "Hey, you know, Kush is coming down. Maybe this is a good time for you guys to talk about like the future, and like maybe this is like a special time for you to, you know, do something." And I was like, "Are you asking me to, you know, propose to Kush?
Yeah.
Because she's here for 2 weeks?" And he's like, "You know," and I was like, "Dad, like, she's here for 2 weeks. Surely we should, you know, plan out our future. Like, you know, maybe her being here for 2 weeks, we should talk about what the future holds in terms of like, is she going to stay in Canada? Am I going to stay here? Like, I don't think that's a quick. I think marriage is a quick fix for a lot of people, a band-aid to
For bigger issues.
yeah, for bigger issues." And I said,
Like
"Why don't
having a kid.
yeah, like having a kid."
Yeah.
And I said to him, I was like, "Well, shouldn't we work on that?" He's like, "I guess so." And I'm like, "Are you worried that I'm not committed to her? Because, you know, like, you've been married for like 30 years. I've been together with Kush for 10 years. Like, I think I'm doing pretty good. You know, we're a third of the way to you. And we're probably going to live longer than you too. Corona's going to get you
Because you old.
because you're old. No one under 30 is dying from coronavirus."
Yeah. So there's a good argument against marriage, but that's not really answering my question as to whether if you think that, did you come up with those arguments because you wanted to rebel against the norm, or did those arguments just lead to that kind of...
No, I
maybe
always,
extreme-
when growing up, I always thought I'd get married, have kids.
Okay, yeah.
Um,
So it wasn't something that you've had from like teenage years of
No.
like, fuck the system.
no. But I was also like, you know, raised to be like pretty heavily Catholic.
Yeah.
I was an altar boy.
Interesting.
So my like, I think a lot of that marriage stuff also came from when I started like distancing myself from the church.
Yeah, okay.
So it's like, it's the institutions that I distanced myself from. And that's my trouble.
Well, that's the other thing is like, I guess that's why I asked is you've got, maybe it could be perceived that way from like an exterior outlook because it is generally the away from the norm thing. But I also, knowing you, do know that most of your ideas, if not all of them, apart from maybe your opinion on transgenders in sport, is like a very well thought out idea.
Yeah.
Like, it's not something that you just decided on the spot and
stuck to it.
stuck to it. Like, you do have very well thought out ideas. And I like, even personally, like, I hold very similar ideas to you, especially in regards to like finances around marriage and that sort of thing. Like, the amount of money that you'd spend saving and then spending on a wedding when that could be making 10% for you in an investment account, like, as instead of spending 30 grand on a wedding, does seem silly to me. But whether if that's a compromise that you have to make depending on who you're with, or
and so that's the other thing. Like, going to this wedding we went to on the weekend was probably one of the nicest weddings I've been to. It was really simple, and it was more so about the party and celebration, which I love. Like, the
that's
ceremony.
how it should be. Yeah.
The ceremony was like 10 minutes, and then like straight after the ceremony, they were like, "Hey guys, the reception's in an hour and a half, but we also have beers here, so have some beers, chill out, chat, and then we'll go to the reception," which was down the road, and it was beautiful, and that was something that I really liked. You know, like, I do like dressing up, I do like partying, so like, I'm all for that. It's just something that I'm not interested in right now.
Yeah, a close friend of mine, I won't give his name because it's a personal story, but was never ever going to get married.
Yeah.
And then they basically
They
decided
changed the laws, and then he was able
yeah,
to.
he was able to, yeah. No, they decided that they would get married, but basically on the premise that it was like the only excuse or opportunity he was going to get to like get all of his friends, where he knows all his friends will actually show up and just have a big party. So he just went down to his dad's farm. They had like a 5-10 minute ceremony itself, just saying vows and I pronounce you husband and wife, and that was about it. And then just free beers and drinking for 6 hours with friends.
Yeah,
like,
and that's cool.
which
See,
is awesome.
I have no problem with like you vowing to someone and then like that's a cool, like I'm all about contracts.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but like
But you don't hold them for you. Oh, actually, you do hold them for you, Jim.
yeah.
Interesting.
But I do. It's just that when other parties get involved, I don't think the government should really be involved in the holding of these contracts. I understand why they are, like
Yes, they have to be.
like it just seems like a lot of red tape to control your life.
Yeah, yeah. I see that, but I also see
The need for it.
the need for it where there needs to be a mediator if it goes wrong.
Yeah.
And that, unfortunately, is generally going to be the government. Otherwise,
Well, see, the thing is, you can't get divorced if you don't get married.
yes, but you pretty much have to get divorced even if you don't get married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you do if you live together. You de
Yeah.
facto.
Yeah. Even if you're not even if you're not, well, sorry, even if you're not listed as de facto, you're still de facto.
Yeah.
Like after whatever the time period is. Like I've got multiple friends that are absolutely screwed if they break up with their missus.
Really?
Or I've even got female friends that are absolutely screwed if they break up with their boyfriend. Like, because he can take them for cash for sure.
Well, that's my hope, is that the only thing that's holding Kush from moving on is that
You'll take her money.
I'll take her money.
Smart. It's always good to have a.
Because I was threatening her. I was like, you know, if we break up, you can have half the gym. And she's like, no. You can have half the van.
Yeah, she'll have to buy you out of the gym.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll
That'd
get
be
$20.
$2.
$2. Speaking of gym, I feel like we should do some critiquing.
Yeah, what are we going to call this segment?
Do you have a name for it already?
No.
No? Technique? Something?
We'll call it Steven Technique Reviews.
Okay. Who do we want to start with? So, Mike, I apologise in advance. We are going to look at yours today.
I guess Mike is first because he's already up.
You did ask me not to, but we're going to anyway.
Okay, so this is from one of your online athletes.
Yes.
His name is Mike Abel.
Yep. He's doing some snatches today. We've been very slowly working him from the high hang, not position 1, down.
All right, so we're just watching this. So if
if you're listening and not watching,
you can't see what's happening. But basically, he's starting off in a high hang position, so knees bent. The bar is a little bit lower than sitting in the hip crease for him, and then he's traveling down to the knee before he jumps back up and snatches again. Oh, this is the wrong one. This is the next one. Sorry. What have I done? What is happening, Steve?
Andy, you've stuffed it. Not that one. Oh well, this is the one we're doing now. There we go. Alrighty.
All right,
So-
what are your thoughts from the start?
I actually like it.
Yeah?
Yeah. I would love for him to be able to pull narrower,
Yeah.
but just not anthro issues, but surgical issues. He's got pins in his ankle.
Yeah.
I don't think we're ever going to be able to get him to pull narrower.
And he's a tall guy.
He's very tall, so he'd be what, 6'3", I'd say. But anyway, technically, especially from where it started, I think it's a very good snatch. I think he's moving down to a great hang position, so I think his knee position's really good now.
I actually think he's really balanced,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
is a very important thing for me. And it looks like his rhythm is quite good. I'd like to see,
His hips travel forward a bit earlier.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So the only thing, and this is, so I'm not giving my critique on this video via email because he's going to watch this podcast. And I've told him this is where he can come for his critique this week. So Mike, what I would say to you is your movement down to the hang is great. Your position's awesome this week. Okay. But the only thing that I think me and Andy would probably agree on is what you're doing is your hips are staying sat back when you initiate the pull. So your hips are staying behind you. Okay. And you're just starting to lift the shoulders rather than thinking about maybe initiating the movement with a forward drive of the hips.
Yeah, like what we want is to see you kind of like jump, but what's happening is like you're coming up to like the end of a deadlift and
Yep.
then going under, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So you see how you're in this position, high hang position.
High hang. Yeah.
So you're in a high hang position here. This is where we want you to finish before you extend.
Yes.
And he's not getting there. He's actually meeting the bar with flat, like
Yep.
completely straight legs.
Yeah. So that's why I guess, Mike, what we've been getting you to do, and before this, I didn't send Andy the video, but before this, you were doing some pauses on the way up at an empty bar. So he was going to high hang, hinge. I didn't send you the video.
Ah, okay.
Hinging
I just wanna look
down.
at this one.
Hinging down.
Ooh, this was a terrible one.
Yes, it was. Hinging down
Sorry, Mike.
to the hang, coming back to the high hang, and then extending. That's sort of without the pause. What we're trying to get you to do in that last video is pull back, push those hips forward so that you've got that slight knee bend at the top, and then jump and extend, rather than what you're doing is just kind of throwing the shoulders back and
Yeah.
throwing the shoulders back and not really getting back to that high hang position. Yeah.
I'm actually really impressed with his bottom position in these.
In these, yeah, his bottom position's a lot
You've
better.
gotten so much better, Mike, since when I knew you. But yeah, this is the reason. See how far the bar is away from you. That's why you're jumping forward in these as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So from how? Okay, let's let Andy do something here. From hip contact on his squat snatches here.
yeah,
So he's going from position 1 on this. Yeah. So this was before we moved down to the hang.
yeah.
On this, what would you say he needs to change to make sure that he's getting rid of that jump forward? How does he keep the bar closer?
He just needs to extend through his knees a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like I just don't think he's extending tall enough. He's just shooting his hips forward into the bar.
So would you say maybe, Mike, if you thought a little bit more about jumping rather
Yeah.
than trying to get the power from your hips, try and think more about getting the power from a jump upwards.
Cool. Now, secondarily, where is he training at home?
Yes, he has been training at the gym, but I think he's struggling to get in there early enough to fit this in before normal classes, because we're only doing a 2-day a week program
Yeah.
for him, trying to improve his snatch. So this is week 13 or something, where we did sort of 2 weeks of just assessing from the ground to see where he was at, and then now we've spent 12 weeks doing from the high hang, and we've just 2 weeks ago moved down to the hang.
Huh.
But that being said, only half that time is spent on snatch because the other half is spent on clean and jerk. And I took your advice. We've moved him to 3 straight snatch sessions,
Yeah.
and then 3 straight clean and jerk sessions. And then on a week where his snatches look like they've been making really good progress, I may have adjusted the program from 3 to give him 4 or 5 snatch sessions in a row, because when it's looking good, I want to keep
Riding
drilling
that
it,
wave.
running it. Yeah,
Yeah.
ride the wave of looking good.
Cool.
But, yeah.
My last, comments would be,
It's hard to see with the TV screen, guys. The lighting's not the best.
yeah, where he's training obviously has very good weather. Potentially wear a face mask
Yeah.
because coronavirus is an airborne disease.
Mm.
I actually don't know if it's an airborne disease.
Neither do I. But he's in Western Australia, so all the way over there, there's that much desert between here and there. I'm sure
It'll be fine.
It'll be fine, yeah.
You don't want to inhale any dust. There's a cactus next to him.
Yeah.
Yep. Those are my thoughts.
Anyway, nice snatches, Mike. We just need to get you not jumping forward.
I've got one athlete. So this is one of my online athletes. Her name is Caitlin. And she didn't want to be on this either.
Because she doesn't like me?
No. Because she didn't want to get critiqued. But I thought you would enjoy this video. This is actually a fail. So you can see that she's sort of falling forwards a little bit. Apparently there's a pole behind her, so she's a bit worried about hitting that. That's why she's so close to the racks.
Perfect.
What?
So, for those who did not see that, guys, what has happened is she's just gone for her snatch, missed it, but because she was squatting in front of a set of squat racks, as it's fallen forward, it has landed on the racks perfectly. So really all she's done is actually pick the bar up and put it on the racks. Yeah, there's a few things I would say.
Yeah, I mean, like, be real too, but I also thought it was just a funny video.
Being real, I find it really hard to, if you go to, so don't worry about her high hang, but watch her when she goes to the hang. I find it really hard to stop people from doing that little rebend, like they're trying to give themselves a run up. So you see she drops through her shoulders and tries to give herself a run up rather than actually just moving straight into extension.
Yes.
I find it really hard to get rid of that in people. Do you have a way that you get rid of that?
I think blocks are a really good way of doing that.
But then I feel like they're still just going to load through the shoulder girdle.
Yeah.
But yes, I do agree. Blocks are a way of stopping them from being able to move the bar for it.
It is a discipline thing too. Like you just have to get them not doing it light weights and to trust. It's really hard sometimes for newer lifters to trust their technique.
Yes.
They want to just muscle things up, especially if they're strong. Like Caitlin is really strong. And you know, like she's done a lot of work to get her snatch to where it is now. It was nowhere near this in the past. So she's by no means an advanced athlete. She's come a long way, but yeah, for sure, like that little cheetah start, it's like how hard it is to get someone to stop bouncing sometimes.
Is there any reason why she couldn't pull with narrower feet?
Yeah, so that's something that she used to snatch with really wide feet.
Yeah, okay.
And we've sort of moved away from that.
Only because I think if she had narrower feet, she might be able to get her shoulders over the bar a bit more at the hang without being quite so, without having to compromise back position.
I very much agree. So
her setup position at the floor is pretty good though.
Still a bit wide.
Shins forward, knees just over the front of the bar. Good fail.
It's such a good fail, isn't it?
Guys, if you like lifting fail videos, I suggest getting up and watching this one. Like, just get on the YouTube and watch this briefly. And I think you have one more like technique video for us.
This one, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know how to make this big. I guess you do that.
Left. Oh, guys, if you can come and watch this on YouTube, please do, because it is hilarious. It is a guy trying to do a single leg box jump onto a weighted single leg box jump, might I add, onto plates which are stacked on top of a bench, and he catches his toe, and it could not possibly have gone worse. Like, he's kind of saved it, like clipped his toe and then put his hand down, but then the plates were going with him, and he went over, and then all the plates fell off, and I think he face planted. It was honestly such a good video.
Okay, so first off, me and Steve do laugh at like people's misfortune. Like, the guy is apparently okay. Look at this comment. Yard sale. If you're here to look at this guy's pride, you're too late. It's already gone. I guess, you know, we're laughing at this guy's misfortune, but he posted it, so I think he's okay with that.
Yeah, I don't care. I laugh at his misfortune anyway.
Like, We had
Also,
a lot of
I
friends-
can't stress enough how poor of a setup that is to begin with for a jump.
How so?
Like plates on top of a bench, the amount of plates that he's got just
Stacked up.
stacked up, the fact that he's got 2 10s and 2 15s below 3 20s, like if anything goes, they're all going to go the
Yeah.
way that that's stacked.
That's true.
The bench is narrower than the plates.
So they're not stable.
So they're not stable at all. The plates themselves aren't,
I'm watching.
the plates themselves aren't even stacked straight.
Yeah.
Like he's in a gym, surely there's a plyo box there.
Yeah. Well, there's a tire right next to it. He'd actually be safer to just stack one bench on top of another bench.
Yeah. It'd be just as stable.
Hey, Steve, where's your box jump fail?
Go to my Instagram.
Is it high or is it hard to find?
No, it's high.
Oh, no, we don't have internet here.
Damn.
I just loaded this before. We'll do a technique review of Steve's
Yeah.
box jump fail next week. Okay, but let's go through the technique. So his first mistake, I would say, was obviously the way he's plated this up.
Mm.
The second mistake, I would say, is not lifting his feet up. A single arm jump is very hard.
Single arm.
So a single leg jump is really hard. And what people don't realize is how much your arms actually help you propel your entire body up. And he's taken that away with the
Kind
with
of.
the plate.
He's still able to throw the hands at the plate.
but not well.
I'd say looks like he's actually got quite a powerful jump because that's not a low jump to be attempting, especially
Single leg. No, I
single
couldn't
leg.
do this. Could you do this?
No, I can't. I can barely single leg jump to a 20-inch box.
It's so funny.
Mm.
It's the reaction that gets me. Like, look, he's like, oh shit, ah! And then the flailing, and then he's obviously in so much pain afterwards. Oh god.
I think it looks worse than it is.
Nope, I think it's pretty bad. He definitely wins himself. He's so winded.
I need to see the way that he lands.
I'm pretty sure he's broken his ribs.
Nah. You know when people fall and kind of hurt themselves, but it's more their pride that they've hurt?
Yep.
I feel like it's one of those.
But yeah, anyway, that's
Technique review.
Steve's technique reviews. Thank
this
you for
week.
watching that segment.
Next week we'll try and watch again because we'll try and get my video up of my box jump fail, which is also a reasonable one where I thought I was going to tear a hammy.
Speaking of hamstrings, I heard that if you stretch your hamstrings, you will stay uninjured for life. Well, after you're 23, you're, what is it, like
24.
24, you're like, what, 70%
More likely.
to tear
Yeah.
your hamstring?
Pretty much over the age of 24, your injury risk is like significantly higher. But they talk about, like, we found that to be a risk factor, right? But we don't know the mechanism behind that, like the reason why that is. Like, there's not just some sort of biological switch that happens at 24. That's just
Hamstrings.
yeah, it's just on a scatter plot. Like, that's just where majority of the injuries seem to take place is above the age of 24. But that, like, there's a whole bunch of things that could play into that. Like, young people, just more pliability at end range. Like, it could be anything.
So what you're saying is flexibility of the hamstring is really important for injury prevention?
I think it is, yeah. Yeah. I messaged Andy yesterday and he was rather unimpressed with it, but I was just saying that there may actually be more research to show that people with greater levels of hamstring flexibility are even more prone to hamstring strain injuries. But that being said, there is also a lot of research that says the opposite. So there's research in contrast to each other. I don't think there's enough solid research either way to show any one is more true than the other. But I was just more pointing out to you, like saying, hey, this is something that is a commonly held belief, I think, in strength circles, is that having flexible hamstrings helps to resist injury. But maybe we're not completely confident on that based on research.
Yeah, so like anecdotally, I actually think your strength at end range is more important.
More important?
Than
1000%. So we know that if you look at the like the peak torque curve, which is like the
it's like an AMG graph.
Yeah, AMG graph. Like the length to peak torque graph, we can see that if someone's peak torque levels are further along towards a longer hamstring, that's where their peak torque happens. We know they are generally at less risk of an injury than someone whose peak torque happens at a shorter hamstring length. So, yeah, that's pretty much. So there's just that we can do exercise to try and move someone. A good exercise to try and reduce injury risk is to try and move people further to longer on that peak torque graph.
Huh. Yeah, that makes sense. So the gist of what we're saying is like stretching is dumb and you're better off strength training to end ranges.
Yes.
So increasing your range of motion through loaded exercise
Yes.
is more important than all the dumb stuff you do.
Yes.
If you are doing a bunch of yoga.
Interestingly, I'm going to ask you a question. I'd say this will be our last topic.
Yeah.
If you were trying to train someone
Yeah.
to mitigate their risk of hamstring strain injury, let's say someone who competes in a running base, or let's not even say a running base sport, let's just say they're a sprinter.
Yeah.
What would your program sort of look like? What sort of things would you be wanting to focus on? Contraction type, like velocities, that sort of thing. Like what would your general focus be if you were trying to mitigate the risk of injury in the hamstring?
I would give them lots of 1RM hamstring curls. So just seeing like what the maximum weight they could do is to like further than their end range. So like seeing if their knee can hyperextend.
Yeah.
Strongly.
Yeah. Without the ACL going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the important part. But actually, really, if your hamstrings are stronger, you don't need an ACL. So,
no.
like, just let it go.
Well, we know that to be fact.
Yeah.
Seriously, what would
I focus on? I would focus on, so like at the start of the let's say they're 4 months out of from a race, a sprint. We know that like they need to be strong enough to adhere to their training regimen, which is sport specific, like closer into the competition, and they actually do need a certain level of hamstring stiffness when they're sprinting, because like during the sprint phase, like we don't want them all gangly and loose, because I'm pretty sure a lot of the research shows that hamstring stiffness actually helps during the sprint too.
Yeah.
So further out, be very similar to how you program for anyone, like a lot of end range work, so like RDLs, and preparing their hamstring in different positions. So both, plantar flexed or dorsiflexed, because that changes how the hamstring works, and a lot of general strength, bilateral work. And then as we get closer, I would move to more unilateral work. So like the second 4 weeks.
So bilateral is both legs, and
so like
unilateral is one leg.
It's a lot of squats and stuff in the first, 4 to 6 weeks. Then we'll move to more unilateral work. So things like single leg RDLs or lunges and stuff like that. As they
single leg power clean to box step up.
Yeah, we'll do those. Oh, you should have used that as a video.
Oh, I should have, yeah.
Yeah, we'll use that next week.
Yeah. That actually I won't talk shit about anything.
What was that? Was that in your university notes or something?
Yeah.
Oh, that was an exercise
An
someone
exercise
actually wants
that they
you to
actually
do.
use.
Huh.
Yeah, in some rugby clubs, some rugby league clubs.
Why?
I don't know. It seems over the top to me. I understand kind of what they're trying to do, but why?
Yeah.
Like it just seems to me like it's a largely, like the risk to benefit ratio seems low.
Yeah, okay. And then in the
High.
final, like let's say 4 weeks or so, we'd work more on combining the two qualities together. So making us move those weights bilaterally faster, adding in, a lot more things that are more explosive. And then with the unilateral work, making it more specific to what they're actually going to have to do. Does that kind of...
Yeah. Can you explain to me the difference between dynamic and ballistic movements?
So a dynamic movement is like a swing. It can be passive.
Yeah.
Like me doing this is dynamic.
Yep.
But I think a ballistic is like more like that, right? Like there's the SSC
Stretch shortening cycle
as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So I generally think of it like ballistic. Is ballistic not more like a repetitive motion? So like a banded hamstring curl.
Yeah.
A banded hamstring curl like that would be dynamic.
Yeah.
But like that would be ballistic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you're right. I think it's probably the utilization of stretch shortening would probably be it. I should look it up because I feel like I can look at a movement and go, that's ballistic.
Yeah.
And we should say all ballistic movements are dynamic, but not all dynamic movements are ballistic. So anything that's sort of moving is dynamic, right? Like if you're moving, it's dynamic. If you're still, it's static.
Yeah.
And then ballistic is probably like a sub branch. Right. Anyway, my reason for asking you about the hamstring stuff is this helps me.
Ooh, when would you put ISOs in?
That's a good question. I'm gonna. This is a good way for me to reiterate things that I've recently read and looked over, is to explain it to someone else. So
Do you disagree with what I said?
No. I agree with it. You looked at it at a much more holistic approach than what I'm about to.
Oh, okay.
What I'm about to give.
Yeah, I know you asked me specifically about the hamstrings, but I was like, but then what would I do with the other stuff?
So we know that some of the best indicators for hamstring injury is actually. So I should say that the most common injury is biceps femoris, the long head.
Yeah.
And in running-based sports, it generally happens during terminal swing. So we can, by looking at terminal swing, we can say it's probably generally an inability for the mechanics of the hamstring to resist the force that the quadricep has put through the knee in slowing down the shank. Yeah, so when you're moving through terminal swing and the angle is changing at the knee, the angular velocity is happening too fast and with too much force for biceps femoris long head to slow that down. So that's when we get a tear, right?
So for people that are listening that have no idea what you're saying, is basically like when you run, your legs swing around and your knees bend.
Yeah.
And you're talking about like as you make ground contact, that kickoff point is when people tear?
No. So as you are extending out towards ground contact with your front foot, your hamstring then needs to slow down just before foot contact, slow down the shank, and that tends to be when it snaps.
So right before you.
So there's large force at end range of motion of the hamstring. Yeah. So it would be pretty much just on ground contact is probably a good way of saying it. But we know that one of the big risk indicators is people that are weak in that long range, but also their individual fascicle length of the muscle itself.
Their tendency to overstride.
Well, that's part of what goes into it, but we're eliminating technique as a factor in what I'm talking about. Okay. So we're looking for long fascicles that are strong at end range of motion. So the research would show that...
What's a fascicle?
A fascicle... Oh, fuck.
Well, you can't use big words
okay, sorry.
on the Uneducated Opinions podcast.
So the fascicle is the individual, I guess, like string that makes up the muscle. Yeah, so each muscle has lines of almost string through the belly, which makes up the contractile elements, but makes up the things that make your muscles work. And that's where all that hangs in that piece of string. And
What's an actin?
okay, we're done.
No.
That longer fascicle helps to reduce the injury risk. So training when trying to mitigate hamstring risk needs to be directed at lengthening those fascicles and having them be strong at that end range. And we know that from research, the best way to lengthen them is intense, so high intensity, preferably supramaximal, so pretty much beyond what you're actually capable of doing, so going until failure. And this is where the Nordic got so popular. This is why it got so popular. And eccentrically. Yeah. Eccentrically. So we know that eccentric movement at a supramaximal intensity can increase fascicle length and also move that torque curve to a longer period. But what we can see, and this is where some of the research gets a bit squirrely, is that concentric work actually, when using a Nordic, so the research was done with a Nordic, can actually act to actively shorten the fascicle length, which we know, despite it being stronger, okay, you're actually moving the curve the wrong way. So you're actually making it stronger towards a shorter length, and also you're shortening the overall fascicles themselves, which moves you to a different point on that sort of graph where people are more injury prone. So as far as running injury and hamstring injury risk mitigation, you really kind of want to be focusing on almost purely eccentric movements, or because people would argue that you need to have concentric in there, you would be looking at very eccentrically biased movement to ensure that. But something that was really interesting, and this is something I'm trying to get my head around, and I'm actually sending some emails to some people today about it, is that the detraining period for that increased fascicle length is super quick and super advanced. So we're talking like a 15% increase in fascicle length after an 8-week Nordic training program will make it awesome as far as injury mitigation goes, but within 2 weeks people are back to baseline.
Wow.
Like, so what I'm trying to get my head around, and this is something that I've struggled with from a programming perspective in the past, is when people are in pre-season and you can afford to do all this eccentric loading in the gym, when they get back into high speed running in training,
you don't want to move too far away from it.
You don't want to move too far away from it because there's that detraining period, but how much of it can you afford to leave in when they're doing 30 kilometers of high speed meters a week?
Yes.
Without then the overload being an issue for hamstring strain injuries.
What do they say about like the isometric work?
I haven't done much about ISOs yet, but
because in terms of
my understanding would be that ISOs at end range would probably be great.
That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, so isometrics at end range would probably be great. So like a stiff-legged deadlift.
Just a hold.
Yeah, so just a hold at the base of a stiff-legged deadlift would probably be great. Or an assisted hold at the bottom of a Nordic, or just below end range of a GHR, for example.
Because that would reduce the load. Because what happens when you do a lot of eccentric work is there's a lot of there has to be a lot of repair.
Yes, you need time.
You need time and recovery.
Yep.
Whereas with the isometric, you don't necessarily need that.
I wish I had this graph for you, and I might actually, if you're interested, I'll send it to you.
I'm interested.
But there was another PhD which was done, and it showed...
That stands for pretty huge.
Yeah, pretty huge deal. He looked at the difference between high volume and low volume. So they both did a 2 weeks base where they did 46 Nordic curls a week. So it was 48, so 4 sets of 12. Nordic curls a week.
Oh, and if you don't know what a Nordic curl is, it's when you're like kneeling down. You might have someone holding your feet, and then you lower yourself down and then lift yourself back up just through
Knee extension and flexion. Yeah. That being said, the whole idea of supramaximal is that you would be lowering yourself to a point where you are no longer able to hold yourself, and then you would need assistance to get back up.
So like you might push up a little bit into it, use a band, or whatever.
Yeah. So the high volume, low volume thing that they looked at was that base 48 a week for 2 weeks, and then one group dropped to only 8 reps a week, and the other group increased from the 46 to 60 to 80 to 100 a week over an 8-week period. And the fascicle lengths stayed the same in both groups. So despite the fact that other group started doing more than 10 times the amount of volume in a week, because the intensity was the same, the intensity of the movement was the same, the fascicle length stayed the same, and the detraining period was the same. So it could be said that after a base period, all you really need to be doing is 8 supramaximal reps a week, and you'll maintain that length. So maybe that's what you can do. You can do in pre-season, build up, and then just drop it off to a low level of maintenance, and it will hold.
Yeah.
That being said, I don't think there's been a study that's gone long enough in that regard where maybe it was able to hold that for 6 weeks after the base training period, but if we just continued to do 8 a week for an entire 25-week season, would they still be the same at the end of the 25 weeks?
Yeah.
Which is a good question. But the main differences that they found was not in volume, it was in intensity. So some people were doing it supramaximally and others were doing it submaximally, where they were able to lower themselves down and get themselves back up on their own without any sort of assistance and without failure point, and that was not showing as good a result as actually performing supramaximally. So it came down a lot to ensuring that the intensity was super high rather than worrying so much about the volume. And the contraction mode, which is obviously eccentrics, is the key there. I think isometric, I'm not 100% sure where the research is at with it just yet, but I think isometrics at end range would probably be great at, like I said, shifting that curve towards a longer, which would be great, right? That being said, just because there's a detraining period for the actual length of each fascicle in the hamstring, each piece of string, just because there's a detraining period for that doesn't necessarily mean that the strength adaptations are lost that quickly. So there's a big thing in the lecture that I was listening to that was like, the fascicle length changes do not necessarily indicate it's not the same as the strength adaptations. So they can be mutually exclusive. They don't have to be the same sort of thing. So maybe you're still shifting that curve down a little bit, but the actual length is lower.
Yeah.
But anyway,
that makes me think about how I would change that. Do you want to pause it quickly and start it again?
Yeah, sure.
That way we don't have to freak out about just stopping there. Because like, I'm finding this so interesting. I don't want you to stop. And that's how we lost that episode. I'm not going to stop the camera. I'm just going to keep the camera going. So guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, you get extra footage of Steve playing with his phone.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. So, because that changes the way I would program that. Because I often wonder about like athletes in season and pre-season, because a big, like, just to move away from the hamstrings and just to be more, like you said, holistic. Our problem is people detraining during season.
Yes. So how can we maintain
How
work?
can you maintain that? And it's so hard because they have, like, let's say you have an athlete that is like they're like semi-professional. Like Shani's what you'd consider semi-professional. Like he's in a league that demands quite a lot. They have like 2 training sessions a week plus a game. So that's 3 days a week already that like you wouldn't have him. So we have to go down to if you was doing 3 sessions before, you do 2 sessions. And you have to think about like what you'd put in there for his training. Like, how do we get the most bang for our buck? And usually you'd be like, okay, we got to do like some big compound movements and actually keep him in the gym for that period of time.
So here's my question for you: do you so Shannon plays ice hockey?
Yeah.
For anyone I'm wondering, do you sit back, have a look at ice hockey as a sport, and go, okay, what's the most common ice hockey injury?
Yeah.
As well, which I would say is probably things around the groin and the hip would be ice hockey. Probably adductor issues. Do you
I
look?
think they surprisingly don't have that many adductor issues.
Don't they? No,
Yeah.
I know most of their injuries are around the groin though.
Yeah.
So what are the
I don't
main
know.
issues?
I think it's like, I think they actually, like, they are pretty strong in those positions because it's isometric all the time. Like, they're just sitting like that. I would say like they have weird like the things that I see like shoulder and back.
Okay, so shoulder and back, like.
And I would say that's more from like the swinging and stuff, but it might be different at.
Do you think all the
this
injuries?
level.
Do you think majority, if not all the injuries, are like contact prone rather
Yeah,
than?
I think a fair few of them are.
Yeah. Okay. Because I think contact injuries
And I
are.
guess it depends on the position as well.
Yeah. So I think it's important when trying to decide on an injury prevention program or mitigation program is to not only understand what the injury is, but understand exactly the situation that the injury tends to take place in, and then understand the mechanism that is taking place during that situation. So let's say, what's a good one? What's a good one for hockey? Let's say it's rotator cuff during a swing.
Yeah.
Let's say it's rotator cuff during a swing. What is the mechanism there? Okay, what's the action? They're swinging. Okay, their bottom hand is coming through, and they're going to tend to tear a rotator in their bottom hand, right, as they swing through. So.
And we're not saying that this is a common one. We're just like.
I'm trying to come up with an
we're
example,
coming up
not
with
knowing
something.
much about ice hockey.
Yeah.
The swing comes through, okay, and then let's say they get some sort of rotator cuff tear there. What's happening at the joint that's causing that tear? Well, we can probably say that during that, at end range, there's stretched internal rotators, okay? There's stretched internal rotators and stretched external rotators as we're coming further into internal rotation towards the end range. So is it an inability for the external rotators to slow down that internal rotation happening at the shoulder as they follow through their swing? So do we need to then strengthen eccentrically the end range of external rotators to stop them tearing their shoulder out, which is what happens in baseball. So a baseballer throws, and then what happens is the arm wants to keep going out of the socket, and the external rotators are required to forcefully contract eccentrically as the arm is traveling out of the socket to stop it from traveling out. And that's what blowing the shoulder out is. It's the external rotators tearing because of their inability to stop the humerus from traveling further forward out of the glenohumeral joint.
And then further to that is the reason that you don't have that control over that area. Is that just is that a capacity issue, or is it because of something else further down or up the chain? You know, like let's say you go like a sport that you know well, baseball, because you used to play it. Now you play that. What's that other ball sport that you play that's not that good?
Cricket. I'm going back to baseball this season.
Oh, cool. I think baseball is a lot cooler of a sport.
Just because it's shorter.
Yeah, that's the main thing.
Yeah, that's good. That can definitely be part of it. But that's an assessment thing that needs to take place, I guess.
And that's kind of like part of our job in coaching athletes is to see where movement breakdown is.
It's funny that like I think because the research is so far behind on movement chains,
Yeah.
you'll find it very hard to find a paper that talks anything about that. Like it's always going to be very acute.
Yes.
So
yeah,
at the site of injury. That's why, like with hamstring, like no one's looking at hamstring and going, okay, well maybe we need to move it further up the train towards QL because maybe something's happening there, because the research behind chain kinematics is very...
Well, it's so hard to quantify because everyone's so individual. Like it's different if we were all robots built.
I guess
the
what I'm
exact
saying
same
is
way.
that like what we take as a chain
Yeah.
is still not yet
held by the
hierarchy.
the hierarchy of experts.
Yes. Yeah. So a lot of experts still think that's
Hokey pokey.
hokey pokey. Yeah. And to be honest, like there's no, like I've seen it anecdotally that it's definitely, to me, seems like it exists and it's
Yeah.
a thing there and it can be assessed. But I think you're going to really, really struggle to get any sort of research backing behind it until we find a way to quantify those things.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. But it's just like, you know, like before you were talking about hamstrings, and I was like, oh, what about stride length of striding?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, we're taking technique out of it. But the truth is, in reality, in the gym, we can't take technique out of it
Well-
because we see those patterns. We wouldn't work on technique in lifting if it didn't have a carryover to performance,
Results.
injury prevention, and all the rest.
But
of it.
running mechanics is something that is definitely looked at in literature.
Yeah, yeah.
And that sort of thing.
Yeah,
It was
like-
just for the sake of that argument, that discussion.
But like, you know, what about the minute running mechanics? What about, let's say, as they stride, you know, are they having like some sort of translation through the pelvis? What amount of translation is okay? There's so much more that we can look at. Then you can look at, you know, like when they're running, like what is their thorax doing? Are they are they counter rotating properly? Are they not counter rotating properly? Then
Are they rotating at all?
are they rotating at all? What's their neck doing? Like there's so many things that you can take into account that in research potentially you'd be like, you know what, like it's too complicated. Because then if you go even more minutely, like what's happening at the higher end of their, you know, like where their shoulders are to their thorax, the middle of their thorax, then lower down, like there can be so much crap going on there too.
I think next week we need to talk about rings
No, I don't know enough.
and how bullshit they are
You talk to Kush about
and how
it.
they don't exist. All right, we're going to leave it there.
Yeah. Don't you have to go to work?
Yeah. Alrighty, guys. Thanks for listening to episode 25 of... we're a quarter of the way to 100.
Wow, I can't believe how quick it's gone.
Episode 25 of the Uneducated Opinions. This episode was an overly uneducated opinion, so don't take anything we say as gospel, especially when it comes to training. And
This episode was brought to you by, what's that company that makes diamonds?
diamonds?
Yeah.
Who makes diamonds?
Is it De Beers? No. What is they? Damn it. I had a good joke for it. I don't even remember what they're called.
That's funny. This episode is brought to you by no one because we don't have sponsors because we're poor. So thanks for listening, guys. You can follow Andy
At Train with Andy.
You can follow Steve at Steve Norman 250. You can follow the Uneducated Opinions at Uneducated Opinions. You can hit us up on Facebook. Check out the YouTube, especially if you want to check out some of those funnier videos that we put up today for our technique critique. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you hit that little notifications bell. And if you guys have any videos for us to critique, please send them in, whether if they're your own videos, maybe they're a video of someone else or a video that you found funny, we can have a look at that as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be actual
I mean,
technique
hopefully
videos.
they're videos of yourself. And we just want to judge the technique. It doesn't have to be like specific to lifting or running or whatever. Also, if you have a topic for us to talk about.
Yeah, topics would be good because I feel like we went on a good rant today.
Yeah.
Alrighty, guys. See ya.
See ya.